Sometimes Doug and I see ourselves on that together because he'll report for the show. All right. I'm not going to give you guys the whole sad drama of what it was like to come to work today, because when I got to New York, there was hardly any snow. But one of our bookers will chime in with me that we have a foot of it in New Jersey. And no, it was not forecast. We were told 3 to 6 at the very most. So I was tweeting this morning that I donned a snowsuit. And our boss here, Maria, she saw me on the escalator. I look like a toddler. Okay? I was snowsuited out from head to toe. And as they say, I hiked uphill both ways to work for 2 miles. No, it wasn't quite like that. The boats were running. I got to the ferry. I'm fine. Anyway, just a teeny weeny bit of what it feels like to move away from Minnesota and have it follow you to New York. Joining me on set now is Andrea Tinteros, and she is laughing or maybe bemoaning the fact that we're again together in purple.
We are. And we got the purple raspberry.
You do not have a...
I do.
Okay. Your microphone is not working, so we gotta fix that. All right. Let's go to David Mercer. And David, I know she just handed me a purple-covered BlackBerry, and while her microphone is not working and nobody could hear it, you, my friend, can share in my joy. Oh, I love it.
Good morning to you, Harris and Andrea. How are you?
Good morning. Good morning. Democratic strategist and founder of Mercer and Associates, which is a government and public affairs consulting firm there in Washington, D.C. Good to have you via satellite this morning, my friend. And again, Andrea is here, and I can hear you now.
You can.
Yeah. Well, I could hear you, but they couldn't.
I could hardly hear her.
Oh, can you hear her now?
Can you hear me now?
Barely.
All right. So, well, you guys will soon be shouting at each other, I'm sure.
Maybe it's better.
Let's talk about 2012. There's some interesting things going on with the ramp up to 2012. And really, it's 2011, almost February now. Well, it's the middle of January. But I love Valentine's Day so much, I look forward to it for an entire month. Anyway, you know, as we move closer, there's a name that's popping out, and I don't know if you guys saw the Politico.com article this morning. It's their front page article, at least it was last hour. Mike Pence of Indiana. Republicans are hoping he can step up and bridge the void. What void are they talking about? My gosh, if there are any more GOP candidates, y'all are going to have to open a mall.
What? Well, right. Mike Pence is a diehard conservative. He's a fiscal conservative, and he's a social conservative. He was the chairman of the House Republican Conference, which is the where I used to work, and it's the arm of House leadership that's tasked with messaging the GOP's messages and putting out the messages. So Pence was, for the last, I believe, 2 years, the face of the party. And you know, it's rumored that they want him to run for governor. There's other things that they want him to go after, but he seems focused on the presidency, and he's been very coy about it. And last year at this time, he was at CPAC, and I was guest hosting Strategy Room, and I asked him point blank, "Are you running?" And he said, well, and he danced all around the answers like they always do, you know, like they always do. But it looks like he really is considering it. Although it's not, and David can probably attest to this, to have a congressman end up as president, it's not usually a typical thing.
No, it's very rare. David, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think Andrea is right. History shows that presidents come out of the ranks of governors. I think that's one of the reasons why Governor Christie in New Jersey is being touted. But with Governor Christie, I think, you know, he's got to put New Jersey and that house in order before he can lay promise to being the one that should be putting it on a national level in order. He's got deficits, trying to curb that. You know, he's got a lot of popularity, but at the same time, you know, you don't want to have a Republican nominee, and at least in my eyes, who only serves half their term and leaves office with things undone, if you will.
Yeah, you know, that was some of the criticism for Sarah Palin. That, you know, when she was kind of looking ahead and saying, I'm going to step away as governor, and people thought, well, wait a minute, what does that mean for 2012? Because you didn't finish what you started. Now, people can argue the other side of that, but it is an interesting point.
Well, you know, it happens all the time in politics. I mean, Hillary Clinton, we saw her come to New York.
Well, it happened for Barack Obama.
Happened
He was a
for
senator.
Barack
He walked
Obama.
away from his job.
Exactly. They all walk away from their duties to go pursue higher power
To go
or
be
something
president.
else.
Imagine.
Right.
Right? Okay.
But what's interesting is
mentioned
we've
some
talked about Mitch
successful ones.
Daniels as a candidate, and I wrote about a year ago for Newsmax magazine, a year and a half ago, about Mitch Daniels and how he was an interesting candidate. He's a governor from Indiana. The day he got into office, Harris, he privatized the highway, and everybody howled. And he took that state from massive budget deficits to budget surpluses. He's created a ton of jobs. The guy drives around in a Harley, and he stays with one of his constituents every Friday night in their homes. And when you ask even Joe Trippi, we were talking about it on Fox and Friends last week, and you said, what names worry you? And I said, Joe, it looks like Mitch Daniels worries you, John Thune worries you. He goes, yes, these names do. And so it's interesting you bring up Mike Pence, Harris, because they're trying to gauge now whether he's going to run for the presidency, or if Mitch Daniels runs for the presidency, there will be a vacancy in Indiana.
Yeah, I think
okay.
Yeah, on that, what I'm reading or seeing on the tea leaves is Haley Barbour seems to be the one that wants it most, and as we all know, Haley Barbour and Mitch Daniels are or two of the closest friends in politics, and I've been seeing that Mitch is going to defer to Haley Barbour. But I do want to make a point, if I might add on to what Andrea said with regard to Mike Pence and what he did with the privatization of highways.
Mitch Daniels.
Mitch Daniels, and that I was just at a conference on public-private partnerships and what needs to be done on state budget deficits, and I think we may see some more of those solutions that Mitch Daniels brought to the table. But as far as it goes to him running for president, I think Haley Barbour, I don't think it's a matter of a flip of a coin between the two of them. I think Haley may be the one that they agree will be the one to run.
Can I say something and be frank with you?
Yeah, no, please be frank.
I love Haley Barbour. If he weren't a big Southern white guy, I'd be like, go for it. Everyone's going to love you.
I knew you were going to say this.
It's just not, he's Dukes of Hazzard. I hate to say it.
Really? Guys on the chat, do you think
he's
that?
Very, but I don't, before you jump down my throat, I just want to say that I think he's fantastic. He orchestrated and was the architect behind so many of those gubernatorial wins. He was the head of the Republican Governors Association this last cycle. He's very smart. He has incredible, phenomenal fundraising capability. He's smart, he's accomplished, he's likable. The problem is he's a white guy from the South. I'm just going to put it out there. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I'm actually posting it, which means it's going to go all over the place now. I'm curious to know what people think about this, David.
Well, he's our James Carville, great operative, helped President Clinton win not only one election but two re-election for the presidency. But he's an operative and very effective, very smart, and very shows leadership in mobilizing the troops. And Haley is great, but I'm not sure that Haley would be the nominee.
Chris Gibbons says, "What's wrong with Dukes of Hazzard?" I love that show.
I did too.
Yeah,
I hearted Bosley.
Oh, listen to you. You're so sweet. By the way, and I want to pull this down so we can definitely get this in the show.
Oh no, that's Charlie's Angels.
That is Charlie's Angels. I was going to give you a pass on that and just move on.
Bo and Luke. Sorry.
Charlie's Angels. Hey, listen, do we have any women, Andrea, that you think might come out of the, that aside from Sarah Palin and Michelle Bachmann, any other women that might step in?
Let's talk about Michelle Bachmann, too. Go ahead.
Yeah, you know what? I don't see any emerging. And as much as I'd like to see one, I just want a really good candidate who's going to do a good job. Michelle Bachmann, I think this is a PR stunt. David, you and I talked about... Because I think that anyone who runs for office, or at least floats their name, knows that it's going to be tremendous media exposure. It's going to raise your not just
the end game for
profile,
her, but she already has it.
Bankability. She can become more of a national figure. She's injected in all these stories.
Leadership in the GOP.
That's right, leadership in the GOP. She's able to build a coalition. People are discussing her on Sunday morning shows. All of a sudden, she's invited on the show where maybe she wouldn't be. Same with Mike Pence. And then if she decides, I'm not going to either run for higher office, let's say she does, she could run for governor or senator or something. If she leaves and goes into the private sector, she can, I don't know, maybe get a show at Fox News, get a lucrative contributorship, write a book. I mean, anything to really raise your profile. I mean, there's so many members in Congress, and they're all just scratching each other's eyes out for airtime. I mean, you see them fighting to get on Fox News. And when you're a very attractive candidate, both physically and, I think, policy-wise, someone like Michelle Bachmann in her office is saying, Let's float your name and see what happens.
That's very interesting. But you guys think it's a trial balloon. You don't really see her running.
No. I don't.
Neither one of you.
No.
And David, talk to me about the flip side of all this. I'm assuming,
Yes.
and maybe that's too bold a statement, maybe the Democrats will actually put somebody up to run in a primary against the president. I doubt that. But who would you rather run against, and why?
I think Mitt Romney, who, when you run polls against Obama, he seems to be emerging within the on the Republican side as a viable contestant to Obama. Now, the problem is, though, he got less delegates than Mike Huckabee in the last go-around. He's got problems with his conservative base. But I do think that he's got ability to move voters, attract voters from the middle, independents, and the center. And I think he could pose a great challenge. Thing is, he's got great hurdles to overcome, both in getting his base consolidated, especially with the likes of Newt Gingrich and Sarah Palin and others.
I don't agree.
You've just thrown some stuff out, and I don't want to interrupt you, David, but I want to make sure that for our viewers we kind of keep on pace here. What about that? What about some of those areas he needs to shore up? What's David talking about?
Well, I agree with David. He has tremendous hurdles. I don't think that Mitt Romney is going to get the nomination. I don't think he's an attractive candidate for the GOP. I think he tried to run before. I think he spent a lot of money doing it. He outspent John McCain.
He has a lot of money to spend.
Well, last time, if you look at it, he outspent John McCain in Florida by 3 to 1. And he still, Harris, was not able to build a coalesce a coalition behind him, no matter how much he spent. I think that, one, conservatives are leery of him. Why? Because he implemented a lot of taxes and loopholes and new fees in Massachusetts. He is also, and most critically, he is the godfather of universal health care. Obamacare is Romney care, and Romney care is not working. And so I think, to David's point too, conservatives are also, and again, I'm just going to put it out there, he's Mormon. And I just think that evangelicals are suspicious of Mormons. I know that people say,
"Oh,
well,
you're dropping some verbal bombs this morning."
It's
Ms.
the truth.
Harris.
I call it like I see it. We talk about how Democrats play the race card, and they'll say this is racial, why they don't like President Obama. I think more Americans are comfortable. Obviously, we see Barack Obama win definitively with a black man in the White House than with a Mormon.
No.
Yes.
That's a very bold thing to say. And you talk about people playing the race card. And I've said this on the program before, and David, you can chime in or disagree if you want.
Sure.
It is political. Because if Obama or anybody else felt like a victim, I'm sure they could speak up for themselves.
Well, that's right.
Yeah. So when you hear other Democrats play that card, it's kind of like, well, they're playing it because it works for them politically. Go ahead.
Well, I think, with regard to Obama and a testament to the idea that, no matter what religious background, be they Jewish or Mormon or Christian or whatever it may be, as well as what race, that you can become president of the United States. I mean, Obama went into Indiana, which we all know is the birthplace of the Ku Klux Klan, and yet won the state. I mean, we didn't send a white presidential nominee into Indiana for decades when it came to the presidential race.
But my point is, it's apples and oranges.
But I wouldn't put so much as an obstacle on Romney being his religion being Mormon.
But it isn't. But
it's a majority leader of the Senate who is
it's the elephant in the room that was if it wasn't an issue, it wouldn't have been editorialized over and over. Should he address religion?
I agree. It was
Should he speak about it?
Yeah, but
I think
religion
his
was
biggest
also a
hurdle
challenge for our
It
current
can be
president too.
overcome.
I mean, the religion was also a challenge, and sometimes continues to be. I have to read some live postings, you guys.
All right.
Sure.
Brian in Conway, New York, or Brian Conway in New York says Romney needs glitz. Glitz, unfortunately, is what sells. ATT Nut says, no way. Mitt Romney is another elitist. That actually is a big hurdle for him.
Huge hurdle.
Because he's got so much money, people look at him almost like people had looked at a Democrat who we well know, John Kerry.
Yeah. He reminds me of It's almost too perfect. Perfect family, perfect face, elitist, rich. He used to go in and buy companies and purge them and rebuild them, and a venture capitalist. I mean, the guy, you look at him and you go, he's a big money guy. So, but again, I don't think that's the most important issue. I mentioned these hurdles that he has to overcome as asides. The biggest one, Harris, though, is likability, health care, taxes and fees. Conservatives are weary of him.
Well, and I think going into a Republican primary, can't you just see the blood in the water about health care? I mean, it just passed a repeal just passed in the House. Go ahead, David, your final thought on this subject.
I was going to add to the theme, listen, he is symbolic of the establishment Republican, and as going back to what Andrea said with regard to the conservative base, and maybe 20 years ago, 15 years ago, his profile might have worked, but not with the Tea Party and the growing ranks within the Republican Party, that you have the Tea Party that now is challenging the establishment Republican, and he symbolizes that. And that's what he's got to overcome. And that's what Republicans are going to have to deal with as to, who's going to be able to blend the two or represent both, because you're going to need every vote, as we all know, to win that presidential election.
All right. Reese Cup writes, I heart Andrea Tinteros on the panel. Gosh, I sound like Oprah. Yikes.
Never.
Someone send me home. Charles Blakemore writes, my dream ticket would be Palin/Bachman. I am sick and tired of men mucking stuff up. Time for Fem Power, baby. I added the baby. By the way, Kathleen Kazoo, it is not a minus 25 degrees wind chill here in New York. It's very cold, though. And I think we're getting down to 9 tomorrow. They heat the ferry, girlfriend. They were concerned about me. David, it's so good to see you. David Mercer here, Democratic strategist, founder of Mercer and Associates. Until next time, my friend, stay warm over the weekend.
Will do, and both of you have a good weekend. See you next week.
You too.
All right.
Okay.
Okay.